Okay, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
All right, yo, let's get into it.
Try to take over the world. Try to take over the world.
And greatest chaplain in the world, Mr.
Try
Lance
to
O'Neill.
take over the world.
Yo, what up, world? It is Sunday night, 8:30. Do you know where your POGs are? Of course you do. We are in the building for another Sunday evening. It's your boy, KJ Bradley, with the world's greatest chaplain, Mr. Lance O'Neill. What up, Chappie? We are back. I know you are in a great mood. I know I am. I am ecstatic for a couple of reasons. The boys from Brooklyn are doing their thing, which is what I expected. But I am even more excited because my favorite Brave of all time, my Mr. Brave, Mr. Freddie Freeman, set game one off with in most dramatic fashion, being the first ever person in World Series history to have a walk-off grand slam. And then he came back with his first at-bat in game two to set it off with another home run. He is having an absolutely fantastic World Series, but I come to expect nothing less for Freddie. But yeah, man, I am just excited. I love the way the World Series is playing out. But that's not my team. That's your team. So I'm not going to take your thunder. I'm just excited for my boy Freddie. I'll let you go ahead and talk about it. What up?
So it's funny you say that. How bad does it have to suck for Freeman, though, to have the first grand slam walk-off in the World Series history, and it's still not the most famous Dodgers home run by a left-handed hitter? So it's like, oh, it's like the Gibson home run. It's like, that was not like the Gibson home run. The Gibson home run, I mean, I watched the Gibson home run when I was 15 years old, and the Vince Scully call and all. Oh my gosh, just unbelievable.
As great as Freddie's home run is, it's still not gonna beat the Gibson call, because I mean Gibson was on his last legs. It was so improbable. I mean, they put him in on a wing and a prayer, man, and just the emotion behind the hit. And you can see even after Gibson hit the home run, he could barely make it around the bases, man.
Oh yeah,
those knees were hanging on by a thread, man, and just that arm pump, just like, man, it's just, I don't know, just the emotion and the magic of it all, man. But I don't know, just everything that Freddie went through with his son, man, and just the turmoil and everything, just. I could not be more happy for the guy. And then I'm going to tell you one thing that really made me excited, just going into the Braves chat after watching that game and seeing just like 99.98% of the entire group, like, yo, congratulations, Freddie. It couldn't have happened to a great guy. And I'm like, you know, that was just like the icing on the cake, man. Like, we don't get along, especially during baseball season as a fan base, but like to see the entire Braves nation come in and be like, you know what, that's our guy. Like for that one moment, I'm like, yeah, that we got that one right.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Padres fans are still complaining about the Dodgers. I saw one guy, it was the funniest post. He's like, oh, last laugh on the Dodgers. We beat them in a series 3 years ago. It's like, you don't know what last laugh means, first of all. And then I saw another thread today. It was talking about how this Yankees guy, he's like, I consider this just like if the Dodgers turn out to win, I consider it just like the 2020. It doesn't count because they deferred all this money for Ohtani. And it's like, just because the Dodgers look, every team in baseball, every single one, if you said whatever the equivalent number, so let's say, you know, for the Dodgers is $800 million. For the A's, it's $800. They will put $800 into the future on the bank account if they say we win a World Series this year. It pays for itself. You think the Dodger ownership of the Guggenheim funds is looking that money as sunk cost? They're looking at it as all we need to do is win this year, and we are going to sell so many jerseys in Japan.
Yep.
And Ohtani's was the number one jersey this year. How many do you think jerseys got sold in Japan?
Absolutely.
How many? And the other thing is, when you're talking about baseball related stuff, it's kind of the Caitlin Clark thing.
Yep.
You as a player, and I think this is the difference. Major League Baseball players want Ohtani to explode. They want him to be the biggest, best draw. They want everybody in the world to know who Ohtani is because baseball, A, has been so bad
Yep.
about marketing its players. But B, the more money Ohtani makes, the more opportunities there are going to be for guys like Tatis Jr., for Judge. Non-baseball fans couldn't pick Giancarlo Stanton out of a lineup.
Yep.
Or Tatis or Acuna.
Yep.
If you're a baseball fan, you know who these guys. And that's why baseball players are like, yeah, that they love it. Meanwhile, in the WNBA, they're all going off on Caitlin Clark like she's hurting the league.
Yeah.
It's like, you guys, she's bringing money to the league. Like, I'll bet you in 5 years, the salary of the average WNBA player goes up by 50%.
Absolutely.
And it's going to be directly because of Caitlin Clark. It's not going to be because of these other players. I don't even know who the other rookie is.
Angel Reese.
Angel Reese. Is that who it is?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Angel Reese is posting stuff online that says the WNBA salary doesn't even pay for my apartment. My apartment costs $8,000 a month. Your apartment costs what?
Listen,
You're
I think she needs a budgeting
apartment?
class. Yeah, I think she needs a budgeting class, first of all. And then 2, I get it. Like, what they say, I when you bring more eyes to a project, like the players union in the WNBA opted out of their deal this offseason to renegotiate, which I think was a absolutely positive strategic move because they'll never be hotter. They will never be hotter, and they need to get on board.
They'll never lose more money from the NBA than they have this year.
Yeah, like they need to ride the wave of Caitlin Clark and let her and let that girl take them into the promised land. I mean, they packed
and
out
if they can, and if they can get ESPN to renegotiate the TV contract and whatever, and that's the crazy thing. So it's just funny that to see people arguing about money, and it's funny as baseball fans or even sports fans, you sit back and you sit and I see these people say things like, how could one person, I'm sure my wife would say this, how could one person be worth $800 million? And I say, because that guy can do something that nobody else in the world can do. Yep. Like legitimately, Juan Soto is going to make, I was a good friend of mine, we were talking, how much is Juan Soto going to make? He's probably 10 years, 500 million.
Yep.
And he's 20, he turned 26, I think this week.
Yeah.
So he'll probably have an opt out after like 4 seasons. And you go, how's he worth that much? And Ohtani's worth that much more because he also pitches or will next year. But when you have these guys that have this skill set, well, teachers should be making I believe teachers should make $1 million a year. Dude, I'm going to start teaching. It took me 2 months of going in and studying online to pass the test. And look, I'm a fairly smart guy, but it doesn't mean that it's a special skill. If I go be a high school history teacher, how many people can be high school history teachers? Lots and lots and lots. I cannot hit a fastball. I can't hit a 95 mile per hour fastball. Never could, never would. And that's the difference.
I think it's one of the things. I do believe that, teachers and those who we entrust with our most sacred resources should be paid
Gold? Oil?
No. They should be paid a comparable wage. But when we start,
what's a comparable wage though?
Well, they should be paid more than average. I don't think I think.
So,
I think
I'm going into the field.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't say this lightly. If teachers were allowed to be in a bit more of a free market, they'd make their worth. But because teacher unions are the way they are, and the school systems are the way they are, that will keep
happening. Absolutely.
It'll keep happening.
Yeah.
Right. So And we could have it. We honestly, maybe we need to do this. Maybe we need to put a pin in this because this could be a podcast. We could probably go an entire episode just on teacher. And so let's do that. But for now, Dodgers are up 2-0. We go back to New York. If the Dodgers get 1, I think the Dodgers in 6. But I would not be surprised if it does not get back to LA.
Really?
Yeah, Bueller's looked really good recently, and the bullpen has been lights out. And when your best hitter for the Yankees has more strikeouts than total bases, that's bad. He just can't get it going. And I think that's one of the tough things about baseball is when you can't get it going, you get in that slump because you start trying more and more and more. So now, not only is he trying to get out of a slump, he's trying to break out of the slump during the most important games of his life. He's never played in the World Series, if I'm not mistaken. So Soto, I mean, he's been here before. Soto is like, this is important. This is great. This is a big deal, but I've done this before. And Judge and Stanton are coming in. And Stanton, I mean, he got his home run, and that was great for him. It was I think it was a mistake pitch by Flaherty because where the pitch was, it was like, okay, it needed to be in the dirt, not just below because that's where Stanton was looking. You knew after the high fastball, it was like, he's going to throw me it down. He's going to throw me something at the bottom of the zone off speed. And sure enough, and he just golfed it for 495,000 feet. But you look at these guys and you look at Kike Hernandez for the Dodgers. He is a mediocre. He hit 215, 220 during the season. Most of the year he was under the Mendoza line, wasn't hitting his weight. But he's been in so many. I think he's either tied or just behind Max Muncy for the most home runs in the postseason for the Dodgers. If I'm not mistaken, this is his 3rd World Series.
Yeah, he just gets hot. Some dudes are just built for this time of the year. They just for whatever reason
but he's also been here before. This isn't something he's unfamiliar with. Where Judge is freaking out, and I'm about to transition, right? So transition, you've said, and you have been saying that the biggest problem Kamala Harris has is that she does not have the experience. She doesn't have just the experience of being in the spotlight. Like realistically, her first experience being in the big spotlight was in 2020, and she melted before the first vote was cast. She went through tens of millions of dollars because of all the hype that was on her campaign, and she didn't win a single delegate. She dropped out. Then she becomes a VIP pick because in part she met the requirements that having a old white man the Democrats put in, because they would have absolutely freaked out if it had been anybody but a woman of color. And so she was already, if you think about the population, well, you've only got 13% are African-American males. So cut that down to 6.5% are females. Now the age range, you're cutting that down. And now that are politicians, cut that down, that are viable on a national stage to have any type of, it was her or Stacey Abrams. Those were really the only choices. And I think that ironically is probably the better of the two choices. I don't think Stacey Abrams would be doing nearly as well. And we could get into why, and I will tell you right now, it would be a racist reason, and it would be a fat phobic reason. I think if you have the average voter look at Stacey Abrams and the average voter look at Kamala Harris, objectively, Kamala Harris is probably considered more attractive by more people. And it would have been very hard for Stacey Abrams to get past anybody that had any worries about her appearance. You just had Obama.
The colorism.
You just had Obama.
Colorism and
sorry, let me just make this point
real
quick.
Yeah.
Obama just came out last week and he castigated black men, saying you need to stop. Put aside that it's a black female. First of all, he's saying that the only reason black men aren't voting for her is because she's a woman, which I think is a completely crap reason to say. But if he came out and said you need to vote for Abrams, What would have been the difference? I just think that you would have had a physical appearance difference. And call me crazy. You can call me racist. You can call me sexist, whatever. I'm trying to just be realistic about it. I wouldn't vote for either. To me, it doesn't matter. I think that, you want the best person. So go ahead. What would I mean, if you want to comment on that, feel free. And if you want to dodge it like a 10-foot pole, feel free to do that.
No, a couple of things. I think the Obama thing was a misstep. He had great intentions. It just was it just great intentions. It was just a misstep, right? Like his intent was to rally the troops. Like, hey man, don't let this be the reason why you miss out on a good candidate. However, it came out in a chastising way, right? Like, and it didn't hit the mark like he intended it to. But you're absolutely right. Like, so Kamala's facing the misogyny issue that is just rampant in society. But there is a colorism issue that and then there is a weight issue that Stacey would also. However, Stacey would by far, if you put them two on the stage, Stacey Abrams would run circles around Kamala Harris 10 times.
Would she eat Kamala's lunch?
Would destroy her. And the reason why, and I told you, like when we first talked about Kamala Harris being the candidate, I told you she didn't have the reps. It's not that she wasn't qualified; she just didn't have the reps on the national stage. And I was watching the interview. I can't remember. It had to have been on CNN, and they were talking about how important those reps on the national stage are, especially in the primary process. And they went back to 2008 during the Obama primaries, right? And they talked about one of the campaign advisors for the Obama campaign was talking about how Obama didn't want to be there for his reelection and how he felt it was a waste of time and it was a shoo-in, right? So he wasn't taking it serious. And
2012?
No, I think it was 08. Well, it was no. His first election was 08, right?
Yeah.
So either way, it was either 08 or 12. I can't remember whether his initial election, but he wasn't taking the prep seriously, and he went out
probably the first debate against Romney when he got his.
And he went out there, and he got his butt handed to him. And it was an embarrassment. And after the debate, he came back and he felt so bad about it. He never did it again. But the problem with you got Stacey Abrams on my mind. The problem that Kamala Harris is having now is, one, she's a victim of her own hype. And then two, she just doesn't have the reps. Like for a candidate to be on the national stage, she has to be vetted, right? Like she has to be put through the fire. She only had one major debate on the national stage, and that was the debate where Tulsi destroyed her, right? And after Tulsi destroyed her, she withered. That was my primary concern, because you never got to see what happens after that, right? Everything else, she kind of went through the motions, and it was like easy, right? We're not talking about the DA thing. That was fairly easy. And then, as a candidate for president, she wasn't a real threat. No one, she never put any pressure. She wasn't allowed any. I mean, she had maybe 2 sound bites, and she was making the same mistakes. And that was my biggest fear with the 100 days of her being a candidate. You didn't have time to grow. You weren't properly vetted. And I had hoped, that this plan, if this was a plan, that they, it wasn't a spur of the moment thing. And then, I was watching the CNN panel. I think it was the Abby Phillips show, which is really dope. If you get a chance to watch it, Abby Phillips show is really dope. CNN, it's on CNN, and I know what you think about CNN, but like I told you, CNN has been really, really trying to get back more. Abby Phillips. It was a show that came out on the 24th. CNN has been really trying to get back toward the center the last year or two, right? So they still dip their toe liberally every now and again, but they have some really dope reporters who will take who will take some honest views. But the reason I like this Abby Phillips show is because they had the Republican strategist for the Trump campaign on there from his first election. They had the guy Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank on there. And they had one Democratic strategist on there, just kind of like as a talking piece. And they literally went at it for like 90 minutes. And they tore this whole 100-day sprint down, right? And they broke it down to the point where it's like, hey, look, it was an uphill battle from the get-go, and it was essentially everything that I was concerned about is what it is. What you have a bunch of people talking for and a bunch of people making the case for, and it's the same thing. They're making the same mistakes they made with Hillary Clinton. They're bringing out the celebrities, they're doing the concerts and stuff, but at the end of the day, you have a less talented candidate than Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton could punch. Kamala can't punch. Kamala can't answer questions. Kamala went on a national, you put this woman out there on a national circuit, and she got asked softball questions, and she fumbled it. The same damn question for a week straight. Hey, what are you going to do different than Biden? They asked her the same question. They asked her on The View.
Nothing comes to mind.
Yeah. They asked her the same thing on The View.
Trump ad.
Yeah, on the Night Show. And like these are softball questions on Friendly Network that you are supposed to knock out of the park, right? And you're giving up word salad answers, and they're saying, and even the Democratic strategists had to sit back and say, yeah, well, she has a hard time. She has a hard time conveying it to the park. And Kevin O'Leary was like, yo, we are literally 12 days away from electing the presidency, and your candidate can't answer that question. That is a problem. And and everybody, they just came to an agreement like, hey, we're not saying she's a bad person. We're not even saying she's a bad candidate. What we're saying is she's not right. She wasn't the right candidate for this election. If she was going to be the candidate, right? If you knew that Joe was an issue, if you saw that he had a problem, why wait to 100 days before the election to pull the trigger? You put her in a no-win situation, knowing that she needed the reps, knowing that a primary would have done her well. You were trying to protect her, but what you ultimately did is you ended up hurting her. And then instead of throwing her right into the fire and getting her those reps immediately, you shielded her for another month and a half instead of putting her right out there. So all these miscalculations is ended up dooming you. And then, and everybody's talking about, oh, well, this, that, and the other. I'm like, yeah. But that, then they went into, the whole Trump campaign. And they was like, well, Trump talks about this, then that. And Kevin O'Leary was like, well, Trump's been the same asshole for the last 8 years. He has not gone off brand. His brand is his brand. The problem your candidate has is you can't capitalize. And saying Trump bad is not going to stick with Trump supporters. Trump supporters don't give a crap about Trump being bad. They know he's bad. Your candidate can't make it stick. And that's the biggest, and that was my biggest concern with a Kamala Harris candidacy. And that's why I don't think, I think November 5th, if we see a red wave, or if we see a Trump presidency, the Democrats are going to have to look at themselves and say, this is where we went wrong at, because they did a blind comparison, which I thought was amazingly dope, right? They took the policies, they took all of Trump's policies on his website, and they took all of Kamala Harris's policies on her website, and they posted them blind for independent view, for undecided voters. They took all the names, all the branding off, anything you could recognize as red or blue. And they said, okay, hey, here are your concerns. Here are the policies of the two candidates. Based off of these policies alone, which candidate would you support? I think it ended up being 85-15. They were supporting Kamala Harris's policies. But then when you asked them, what they did a survey beforehand, who do you think is strongest on foreign policy? Who do you think is strongest on the economy? And resoundingly, they voted Trump over Harris. So it's not a policy issue, it's a messaging issue. And that's where Kamala is failing. She can't she can't convey the message to the American people. And that's where I think the biggest issue she's having right now. She just can't convey her message effectively.
Well, first, I'd be really curious who the CNN are asking in terms of what the breakdown is, because, like, realistically, if you just show the difference in abortion, you're going to get a break depending on how many people. Yeah, if you ask women heavy, it's probably, and depending on age.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of that has to do that. But I think the bigger problem with the Harris campaign comes down to one thing, and I've seen a lot of on Twitter. This is, there's nothing about Harris that anybody points to. Oh, she's Mark Cuban. Oh, she's so articulate. She energizes a crowd. Really? She does? Everything you guys ever show is just, she gets up and she talks about how much she hates Trump and how bad Trump is. And Trump is this and Trump is that and Nazis. And I mean, they're at the point where they're taking a picture of Trump, his Madison Square Garden rally. I think it's tonight or last night, and saying, look at what happened in 1936 with the Nazis. They had a rally at Madison Square Garden and it was the Nazis. It's like, you guys, like, realistically, calling Trump a Nazi doesn't work, because I think the average person who looks at that goes, if you think Trump is a Nazi and has become a dictator, why didn't he do it 4 years ago? Why didn't he? And I don't remember if it was you I was talking to, but one of the Stephen Miller guys podcast, he asked the real simple question. He's like, I want a simple question asked of all these Democrats who are saying Trump's going to become a dictator. Day one, he's going to go in and he's going to tear up the Constitution. Okay, so Elton, because he couldn't do it exactly. If he went in and and said, I'm going to take over, people go, no, you're not. It's ridiculous. We're not going to allow you to work outside. You may be the president, but we're not going to allow you to work outside of the Constitution. And if you're saying, I'm going to take over and I'm going to do whatever I want and this and this and this, and like actual impeachable offenses, like real threats of trying to become a dictator, he'd get nowhere with it. Let's just say that. He'd get no traction.
His path is easier this time.
I don't think it is.
I think
I don't think it is, because, okay, so this goes back to what you and I have talked about before. To become a dictator, the very first thing you need is the military. So, and you don't have the military. You would never have whatever you want to say about generals being political or senior officers being political or whatever. You have to have enough support. And I just don't think you would. I think you have too many across the board military that would say, I'm included in that. Look, I'm going to vote for Trump. And if he came out and he said, I'm going to be, I'm going to do what I want. And I'm sitting there going, no, dude, that's not okay. I'm not doing it just because I've been given an order. And I think most military are like me. They would say, we are not going to allow this to happen. Okay, so post that.
Yeah, I'm cutting up there.
He has the courts. I don't think even the courts would support it. So this idea that the Supreme Court is in Trump's pocket is ridiculous. Again, KJ and I have talked about this. Most of the decisions that the court has come to have been 7-2 or more. And you've seen every single justice switch over onto the other side at least once, except for Thomas. He's gone.
He did say he was nominating. I saw a report today to say that the lady that the judge that he appointed in Florida, the one that dismissed his the case in Mar-a-Lago, she's on the short list to be his AG. So, I mean, he is putting his people in spot, man. I don't know.
I didn't say all of them, Elton. I said most of them.
Yeah, I'm just saying. And even the
immunity case, that was not, that has been so misconstrued. If you actually go read what it says, it didn't give anything new to the president. The president has always had immunity. But so KJ, let me ask you this. Knowing Trump and knowing how Trump works, do you think he was serious when he said, "Oh yeah, she's on my short list of AG," or she's like, "Hey, this one, she's smart. I really like her. She knows what she's doing. She's on my short list."
Here's the thing. I told you.
I don't know.
Well, no. Here's the thing. And I told you it's not Trump that I'm worried about. And I told you that. It's not Trump I'm worried about. It's the people that are on his transition team that concerns me. And I told you, and matter of fact, I'm gonna find the clip and I'm gonna pull it up because it's not it's not Trump I'm worried about.
You can't have a dictator put in place by the other people. That's not how it works. The people that want to be a dictator that is the driving force. And I don't think that that's the case. I don't see it.
Give me a sec. I gotta play this clip. I'm glad you brought it up. I'm gonna play the clip and we're gonna talk about it because again,
we're gonna blow past our 30-second.
I already figured we would though. But
Elton, no, he's not going to arrest any Democrats who haven't done anything illegal. Think about it. He's the one that's been prosecuted as a political ploy. That's what you've seen. The appeals court came out and said, Elton said, "Do I think that Trump's going to arrest Democrats?" The New York case, the judges are holding off because they already said, look, during the closing arguments, they're like, why shouldn't we censor you? You can't show us a single case that's been like this, where nobody's been harmed, where both sides are happy to do business, where they keep going. Show us where it is. And by the end of the closing arguments, it's like, hey, please just don't censor us. It's been political. You don't think the two impeachments were political? I mean, what's his name? It's not Venkman. That's from the Ghostbusters. Who was the first one? Who was the Ukraine call? I mean, you had Joe Biden come out and flat out say, I called the Ukraine and I said, if they aren't going to get rid of this prosecutor, they're not going to get their $6.5 billion. And they did it. That's why. What? Like,
yeah, that was
crap.
All right, so hold on. I got the video up and I want to pull it up so we can talk about this. You ready? All right, so this is the stuff that concerns me. Like I said, it's not so much Trump that I'm concerned about, but it's the people that's behind them. And I'm gonna try to get this to play. Let's see if we can get it to play. Oh, I gotta take the volume off.
Throughout Donald Trump's classified documents case is now on a list of potential candidates to be Attorney General if Trump wins. Here's our chief Washington correspondent, Jonathan Karl.
Tonight, sources tell ABC News the federal judge who dismissed the criminal case against Donald Trump for allegedly mishandling classified documents is now under consideration for the role of Attorney General if Trump wins back the White House. The sources tell us that Judge Aileen Cannon is now on a list of several possible candidates for the job. It's a list circulating within the Trump campaign and transition operation. Her name appears on a document reviewed by ABC News titled Transition Planning Legal Principles, which lists potential candidates for White House counsel's office, the Justice Department, and the FBI if Trump wins. Sources tell us the document was drafted by top Trump advisors, including Boris Epstein, who oversees Trump's legal team and is one of his closest aides. Trump nominated Judge Cannon to the federal bench in 2020, lavishing her with praise when she was assigned to preside over the classified documents case, which was brought by special counsel Jack Smith.
I'm very proud to have appointed her, but she's very smart and very strong and loves our country. Loves our country. We need judges that love our country, so they do the right thing.
The documents case was seen as the most dire legal threat to Trump after the FBI seized boxes of highly classified documents at Mar-a-Lago, including some stored in an ornate bathroom and others on the stage in the club's ballroom. But for months, Judge Cannon handed prosecutors one defeat after another, ultimately throwing the case out entirely, declaring Smith's appointment as special counsel unconstitutional. But Trump praised her as brilliant.
I think she's a brilliant woman. I think she handled a scam. It's a scam case.
The Trump campaign had no immediate comment to our reporting about Judge Cannon, but I spoke to Donald Trump late yesterday, and he said that he wasn't ready to talk about the work of his transition team or any of the appointments he might make if he gets back to the White House, telling me, quote, "I don't like to talk about transition until I win." David?
John Carl, live in Washington. Thank you, John.
All right. So
KJ, let me ask you something. What was the difference between the documents that were at former President Trump's house and what was there at the time, former Vice President Biden's house?
No, they were one and the same. I'm in agreement with you.
There's one difference, though.
What's that?
By law, constitutionally, by law, Trump can declassify whatever he wants.
No, hell no, you can't.
The president of the United States is the ultimate classifying authority. When you're talking about classification if Trump went in, now we can argue whether he could get it done because of the bureaucracy that would try to stop him or not. We can argue about that, right? But as far as actual classifying documents and the classifying authority, there is nobody higher than the president of the United States. He can classify anything he wants, and he can declassify anything he wants. The vice president doesn't have that power. Only the president, because he is the head of the executive branch. Now, whether you agree with that or not, that is the correct stance. Now, you can say, well, Trump still never should have took stuff. Well, yeah, they've all done it. I mean, if you start looking at Hillary, she had stuff on the server. They've all done it. It's because it makes them look important. Okay. But ultimately,
so I'll give you that.
It doesn't.
Right. So I'll give you that. All right. So let's play this game. So the president can declassify it. Those documents were moved to Mar-a-Lago after January 20th. Who's the president on January 20th? When those
who's to say it didn't classify him before January 20th, though?
Oh, come on.
I don't know.
Now we see.
So hold on. By that argument,
that's the biggest issue we're gonna have, man. We're gonna keep walking the dog on this BS, that's why it's dangerous. That is why it's dangerous to have a guy like that.
Do you think they filled the boxes on January 20th and then took them right to the U-Haul? Or do you think they were already in the Now, look, I'm not saying that he went through the right steps and declassified them. I'm not saying that. Okay. I'm not saying he didn't go through and take out the forms, because clearly he didn't. There's supposed to be forms done. Now, I don't know what the legal precedence is. I don't know what I know there are forms to declassify documents. I don't know if the president can wave a magic wand and say, I declassify everything in this.
You're telling me a guy who self-admittedly said he didn't read a damn security brief in the 4 years he sat in there.
Sure.
Magically decided to declassify hundreds of thousands of documents before he
hold on.
While he was simultaneously challenging an election.
What did you just say, though? You just said you were worried about everybody on his staff, right? Okay. Hey, you know what, Mr. President? You've got these forms. And he's going, well, I want to take these, this is what I want. Hey, pack them up. First of all, there's no way he went through and he's the one who packed the boxes or any of that. Do you believe he packed the boxes or chose what was in there? Of course not. Now, do you think somebody went to him and said, don't worry about it. You're the president. You can declassify them. You want to be declassified? And Trump went, sure, yeah, they're declassified. And the guy went, you're fine. It's a catch-22, right? Either this goes back to the to the paradox, right? It goes back to what's a paradox?
This is a paradox.
This is a paradox. Okay. This goes back to I don't know if there's a name for this, but it goes back to the Jewish paradox of the Nazis. The Jews are so dirty and mentally disabled and evil and wicked, that they must be destroyed because of how they rule the world, because they're cunning and smart and able to get into banking and do the job. Well, wait, which is it? Are they incompetent and evil and not worth anything, and they are the lowest of the low of the world? Or are they so smart and sneaky that they're able to convince everybody of what they're able to get into power? So you have this argument about Trump as he's a clown, he's incompetent, he's horrible, but he's so smart that he's able to manipulate the system in ways that nobody else has.
No. You have that argument. My argument is the same. Hey, that idiot just stole 100,000 classified documents and put them in the box and had his team steal the documents. They shouldn't have been there. Hey, we should probably do something about that. My argument is not changed.
Was Biden the same idiot?
Yeah, Biden is the exact same idiot.
As long as you're consistent, I look at that and I say every
consistent. The problem is I've been extremely consistent, and here's the issue: most Americans are extremely consistent. We can objectively say, "Hey, Biden's an idiot for locking those in his Corvette. We should do something about it." You know what happens? Most conservatives will sit back and be like, "Yeah, Biden's an idiot. He should be locked up." But when it comes to Trump, they'll say, "Oh, well, Trump. Well, there's a perfectly good reason he did it," and that is where you find the
hold
problem.
on. I didn't say
I'm not saying you.
I didn't say
I'm not saying you. But what I'm saying, most conservatives that's where we draw the line at, and that's where we.
Let me ask you something, KJ.
In the country.
Let me ask you something, and this is a serious question, just as comparison. If you'd gone back and you'd looked at H.W. Bush, at Clinton, at W, at Obama, at their transition teams, and all the documents that they took out, in large part, they end up in their museums, their presidential
in their libraries.
Museum. No, that's not what is called the presidential library.
They went to the libraries.
Okay. Before it got to the library, and it was actually all those documents were actually reviewed and all that before they would go into the library, because they become official. Do you think it's likely, unlikely, it absolutely happened, or it absolutely did not happen, that in those transition documents that there were classified materials in each of those administrations?
That spillage happened? Absolutely likely. Yeah.
And that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So that's all I'm saying is I think it's spillage. Oh, for people who don't know,
there's a difference. Lance, come on, man. You've been in the military over 20 years. There's a difference between spillage and a difference between taking 100,000 documents and putting them in your mansion, man. He was not storing them. Lance, he was not storing them.
I don't know where. I don't know where.
Come on, man.
I don't know where HW.
Come on, man. You're not being realistic, bro. You're not being realistic, and that's driving me crazy, bro.
Biden had him in his garage behind the Corvette. Trump had him at Mar-a-Lago. Who's to say Clinton didn't have him?
And you would sit back and you would say, "Hey, Biden should be arrested for that," and I would agree with you. Hey, he should not have classmates, because here's what happens: if I had with the secret clearance that I got, if I had targeting material locked in my closet right now. If I had those handbooks locked in my closet right now, and I went to my school and said, "Hey, I got all of this stuff locked in my closet," they'd be like, "Hey, we should probably investigate that."
You and I, every military member up to probably general, we all get prosecuted, of course. But you hit a certain level, and it becomes political, and everybody looks the other way, and everybody just goes, "Meh." Once the Trump stuff came out, I was like, nothing's going to happen. When the Biden stuff came out, I went, nothing's going to happen. There gets a point where these rich and powerful people, Epstein, we still don't know the Epstein client list. Why not?
But here's the thing that the sticking point for me, right? And we been in the military, right? And we can agree to disagree on the level of it, right? Okay, say Trump was just storing it to build the library in the back of Mar-a-Lago. Okay, cool. I'll even agree with you. But here's the sticking point where I have in the whole investigation. There are reports that he would go into those case files and he would show those classified documents to leaders of foreign nations.
Why?
That
Why was he doing it?
That should be concerning to you as a citizen, and even more concerning to you as a member of the armed forces. Hey, man, we probably should be concerned about some shit like that.
Okay. Few things. One, why is he doing it? He's showing people off. He's showing off, right? Odds are he's saying, oh, look, top secret, right? Okay. I don't know what he showed. Elton, get off of it, man. Putin does not have the stuff. See, this is the type of stuff. Elton's sitting over here going, hey, if generals are not good for him, Putin's got in his Trump. Dude, it's been disproven. Trump is not in anybody's pocket. He's just not. That's what's the scariest part. That is the scariest part to the establishment, is that Trump isn't in pockets. So, Rogan. Okay. Trump went on Rogan this weekend. And if you haven't listened to it, it was released Saturday night. It was incredible. Okay. Rogan sat down with him. They had a 3-hour conversation. And the exact things you guys aren't seeing have come up. But one of the things Elton is saying is these generals, right? And Trump said, and of course, Trump being hyperbolic, we know what Trump says. He says 97% of the people in my administration love me. They thought I was great. And these 3%, they don't. Yeah. Because the 3% quit or whatever. And my thought, okay, General Milley, General Kelly, they both come out and say Trump should not be president. Milley specifically said this, and then Kelly said about the he's a Nazi, right? Or he's fascist. He called him a fascist, right? Okay. So if you're Milley and you're Mark Esper, and Mark Esper has written a memoir that said, during my time as the Secretary of Defense, I actively went out of my way to keep President Trump from being able to enact orders as the president, because I serve the Constitution and not the president. Okay. Well, by the Constitution, the president is in charge of the military. He is the commander in chief. Okay. And Milley called a cohort in China and said, as a general, and said, hey, don't worry. If President Trump tries to do anything, we're not going to let him do anything with the military as a lame duck. These guys would be tried for treason. They should probably be tried. They won't be, because I just, there's a point where it doesn't matter to the powers that be. But if you or I did that same thing, KJ, you or I did that, we're getting charged with treason, or we're getting thrown in jail.
I'm gonna try to get a picture up of all the people who resigned. I can't see.
I really don't care, dude. Let me ask you this: how many people signed the letter? Intelligence professionals signed the letter that said the laptop was a Russian propaganda and it was fake. Wasn't it like almost 60 or 67 or something like that, right? You can't trust these people any more than any politician. You can't trust Trump. You can't trust Harris. You can't trust any of these people, because what they want is to stay in power and they want to move forward. Now, do I think that means Trump is going to walk over and try to shred the Constitution? No. Do I think Harris, if she becomes the president, that she's going to somehow become take off a mask and go, ha 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 ha, I'm actually Joseph Stalin in disguise, and I'm going to take over. We're going to invade Canada and Mexico, and we're going to be the Soviet Union. No. So, yes, goodness forbid, Elton, that the facts come out. He says, here we go with the laptop stuff. Yeah, it turned out that it was real. So it was a real thing. So you don't have, we don't have a pure country. Okay. And I don't think anybody would argue that we do. We live in a country that is better than, I think, any country in the world. Now, people will say, what's so great about America, this or that. And I'll say the first thing that's great about America is this right here. You and I can sit and we can talk online. We're not getting shut down. ironically, if we get shut down or nixed, it's because of the tech companies that choose to do that. But the government is not doing that to us
yet.
And so, yeah, so it's January 6th. Yeah, so bad that we're now into the fourth term of President Trump because he hasn't left office. I think we're in a country that has slowly degraded, and we will continue to backslide until we either, I don't want to say a civil war is what's going to do it, because I don't think that's necessarily true. And Elton, there you go. You are a perfect example. KJ, put that up right there, what he just said.
This one?
Elton, the bottom one, the trash can. Okay. So says the guy who says America is a trash can. So Elton, you're taking this one tiny little clip of what Trump said, because he said America is the trash can for the world. He said you have this country and this country and this country, and they're taking all their criminals, and they're taking their people that are in mental institutions, and they're the people they don't want, and they're throwing in America. They are making us they're the world's trash can. So now you turn around, or people turn around, like Drudge Report had that on here. Drudge said Trump calls America a trash can. He was using it as a simile to say that we are the world's trash can because they are dumping everybody. Oh, Elton, you piece of shit. That is the dumbest thing you could write. Here we go. Bottom line is he said it in any context. That is so friggin' ridiculous. Yeah, and I'm going to get mad now. Context is what matters. So, Elton, you just wrote, it's going to happen, right? Oh, it's going to happen. He said that Kamala Harris is going to wipe out all of the taxes, and she's going to go in and she's going to throw all white people in jail. You just said it's going to happen. Oh, context doesn't matter. You said it's going to happen. That's what that's the scary thing about what's going on right now.
He's been saying a lot of bad stuff about Kamala lately. Or Kamala. I keep saying her name.
He has. Oh, absolutely. He's called her mentally retarded. He's called her stupid. He's called her low IQ.
He's been turning up the rhetoric lately.
Okay, so KJ, is any of those worse than being called a fascist? Being called a racist? Being called misogynistic? Being called what? Look, we've gone through the whole thing.
Yeah.
The one today that I saw was, look at all these racists at the Trump rally. This guy gets up on stage and he says there's a 200-mile wide pile of garbage in the middle of the Atlantic, and it's called Puerto Rico. And people are freaking out about it. What they don't realize, this guy's a comedian. He's a stand-up comedian. I mean, if it'd be one thing if it was serious, it'd be one thing if it was like, but this guy is a comedian. So context matters when you're talking about this stuff. And if you just take things out of context and you say, oh, well, it doesn't, and if anybody says anything, look at what happened with CBS 60 Minutes. CBS 60 Minutes, and they talked about this on the Rogan podcast, but otherwise, I already knew about this, but I'm just saying they talked about this. 60 Minutes asks Kamala Harris a question about Israel in the Middle East, and she gives just an incoherent, horrible answer, right? And it really makes no sense. But then when they released the 60 Minutes, it was a completely different answer. They'd actually taken an answer from somewhere else in the interview and plugged it in. That is not editing. That is fraud. That is misleading. And as a news organization, that's not acceptable. And that's not what's supposed to happen, right? So there's a little bit difference between cutting things down and the deceptiveness there versus taking an entirely different. And the only reason we know about it is because the clip of what she said had been released on Twitter as like a teaser of what she was going to be talking about on 60 Minutes. It's kind of like when you see have you ever seen a movie clip or a trailer for a movie and you're watching it like, oh, that's cool, that'll be cool. And then when you watch the movie, you're like, wait a minute, that wasn't even in the movie. Right?
Where they cut it in. They cut in. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So it's like, well, wait a minute. What I saw that. Do you remember that really cool part where I don't know, Anakin and Obi-Wan were having a lightsaber fight and Anakin kicked him in the nuts, and that was in the trailer. But then
it got edited out. Yeah, it ended up getting edited
right?
out. Yeah.
Right. Now that's fiction. So that's what has been going on. That's what happened with 60 Minutes, right? And look, I have no problem holding Trump accountable for what he says. I have found, however, that most of the stuff that gets shown is, see, here's proof that Trump is this, that, or the other. Isms, right? Racist or an ist, right? That if you go back and you actually watch what he says, one of them was the bloodbath. If he loses, there's going to be a bloodbath. If you go and watch what the context was, he was talking to a bunch of auto workers. And he said, look, what he was saying was, yeah, he said, if Trump was up and bloodbath, right? And everybody says there's going to be he said there's going to be a bloodbath if he loses, right? And what Trump said, he was at this rally with auto workers, and he said, if Kamala Harris wins, all of you, the auto workers, the auto industry, there is going to be a bloodbath for the economy, because they're going to allow these vehicles in from China. China's building this giant factory in Mexico, and it's going to undercut what will happen to the economy and so it's going to be a bloodbath in this part of the economy. He wasn't saying go out and attack. He wasn't saying but it's taken out of context, and that's where the problem was. So this is where, if you go and you listen to anything with Rogan, and listen, I understand you don't want to sit down and listen to 3 hours of it. Cool. I have no problem with that. But if you watch a clip that is middle of a sentence and it comes in and it cuts off, go watch a little bit more of it.
I'm going to go check it out. I haven't seen it yet. I'm going to go check it out.
Yeah. So my wife and I, we were driving up to soccer, and she's fairly apolitical. And we listened to it, and there were several times she was laughing because it was genuinely an entertaining. Of course, there gets to a point in like hour 2.5, 2:30, and they start talking about MMA because Trump likes MMA and he's a boxing fan and all that. So he and Rogan start talking about MMA, and she's like, "I don't want to listen to hear. I don't know any of this stuff. I don't want to listen to this." I'm like, "This is what guys want to listen to. It's the market. That's where you want to do." So. Elton says he watched the Ego show. Elton
wants to come on live. You want to bring him in?
Your mind, dude. I'm not trying to change anybody's mind.
Elton wants to come on live. You want to bring him in?
Not really. I don't want to go for an hour. I don't want to go for another half hour.
Oh yeah, we're already in an hour.
A 3-hour puff piece. If it's a puff piece, then go ahead and let Harris on. But we wanted to keep this about 30 minutes, and so we're already in an hour.
Yeah. Oh shit!
So we probably got to wrap up. I've got to get to the school in the morning. So
you still got the gig.
Yeah. So I'll say this, and we'll pop up final thoughts here, right?
Yeah. Let's go ahead.
Yeah. So final thoughts for me. I'll just kick off and I'll keep it fairly short. Final thoughts to this is we only have 9 days left. Is it 10?
After the day, it'll be 9. Yeah, after midnight.
Well, yeah, okay. So I go a week from Tuesday. Yeah, Elton, I just said why I don't. I'm not scared of you, brother. Everything you said, I had plenty of comebacks for. I'm not worried about you. If it had been 45 minutes ago.
Okay. That reminds me.
Tell you what, Elton, go ahead and get your own podcast, and we'll invite you, and you can invite me on, and then I'll decide if I want to come on or not. Because at this point, anyway. So
my guy I didn't see today.
Oh, what's his name? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was like Allie. Allie wanted to come on and do this. I said, no, not yet. Let's wait until, a little bit. But
yeah.
If Allie wants to come on and Elton want to come on after the election, yeah, we can do that. Totally cool. Maybe, depending on how the next 5 minutes go. But I'll tell you this. I am so ready for every 4 years. It's like this.
It's gonna be like this.
Just get it over. Get it done. Just get it done. Get the votes in so we can know Tuesday night. I believe it was the Fifth Circuit just came out with a ruling that said all ballots have to be done and counted and in by election day. There can't be any after. And they said that's a constitutional thing. But somebody I made a great point. Like, even if it isn't, who's going to do anything about it? That's the problem. Our entire country, the rule of law is broken. And if I believed Harris was going to come in and actually say, look, we are legitimately going to follow all the laws on the books, her included, great. I'd probably consider voting for her, but I don't believe she will any more than any other Democrat or any Republican, because they get to that point, none of them believe their own crap smells. So I can't wait for this to be over. Give me 10 more days and be done with it. But I really just hope whoever it is, and I told you this before, whoever it is, I want them to win significantly. So it's not a question.
All right. Whew, final thought. That was a whirlwind hour. I was not expecting it to be so contentious. Excuse me. Jesus.
Oh, there's another one though. I'm telling you. I feel a band coming on.
Yeah, man. 10 days, 9 days, whatever it is, man. Go vote. It is going to be razor thin. Just vote.
You don't believe that?
Yeah, I don't. I think it's going to be a landslide. I'll reserve my thoughts for my own sanctity, because I don't need my emails and my DMs blasted for the next 2 weeks. So just vote. Whoever has convinced you that they're the best option for the country, and you believe that they are going to steer you in the right direction, go vote. Vote your heart. With 10 days left, I don't think there's much convincing left. By now, you should have pretty strong convictions one way or the other. Choose your horse and ride it into the sunset, man. Next week, I think we should take a week off and just pick it up election night. Either do a live election night, or just wait until after the aftermath. I don't think it's going to be decided on Tuesday. I think it's going to go well into Wednesday afternoon. And then I think it's going to be challenges after that, honestly.
Do you want to do live Tuesday night or wait until live? Well, I mean, we're going to go live.
Yeah.
We don't record any of this.
Yeah.
You want to do Tuesday night?
Tuesday night, we can do live reactions as they come in. I think 8:30 is probably right when the East Coast polling's going to start closing anyway. Yeah, let's do that. We'll see that initial red wave, and then we'll start seeing all the metros start coming in about 9:30, 10. So pack a lunch. We won't be here. We won't be here next Sunday, guys. Tuesday,
and we're not gonna. If we start Tuesday night, odds are we're not gonna go until it's called.
Yeah,
I don't think that's good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nobody wants us to be doing a 3-hour show. Although
we've done
3-hour shows.
Yeah, it's not. So we'll bounce back and forth and listen to the rhetoric from the pros, and just it's in God's hands now, man. Go vote.
No, it's not. It's in our hands. Go vote.
Yeah. That's what they want you to believe. It's in our hands. We'll see. 10 days. All right, man. My brother.
Love you, brother.
Hey, man, let's get it. 10 more days of this nonsense. You ready?
I can hold. What's the Army phrase? I can do anything for 10 days.
Till next time, we are out of here. Y'all enjoy life, man. We'll see you next Tuesday, not Sunday. We'll see you election night. We're out. We are out. Hold on.